Hello everyone, Supersonic Core here, and I actually managed to make it to the cinemas to see Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens. I don't think any movie has ever been publicly anticipated since 1999. So people really tense inside. They are going to Star Wars Episode VII, Force Awakens. Is this movie good? Like, we've been waiting for ages and ages and ages. And is it good? I am happy to say that I saw this movie in cinemas with my father, and I am very happy to say that this is by far the best Star Wars film since The Return of the Jedi. If you don't like The Return of the Jedi, then this means that it's the best Star Wars film since The Empire Strikes Back. Star Wars The Force Awakens is actually not directed by George Lucas. This is directed by a Star Wars fan who loved the original trilogy, especially New Hope, and he hated the prequels, and he wanted to do better to the Star Wars series, and he wanted to give the public something better than the prequels, and so he decided to make his own Star Wars trilogy. This movie is directed by J.J. Abrams, who directed Mission Impossible 3, which I actually really like. Mission Impossible 3 is actually my second favourite Mission Impossible movie in the series, right behind Ghost Protocol. So knowing that he was behind Mission Impossible 3, I was really excited to see how he would do Star Wars. And this film works, my goodness, it works! Star Wars Episode VII takes place around 30 years after Return of the Jedi. We are now introduced to this guy named Finn. He is a stormtrooper, but there's something he doesn't exactly like about this life he has. And so he actually ditches the Sith / the stormtrooper, and he meets up with a girl on Tatooine known as Rey. And together they go on this big adventure as they suddenly become fugitives, and they eventually meet up with Han Solo. While all this is going on, there is a rise of a brand new villain who takes up the inspiration of Darth Vader, and his name is Kylo Ren. And I find it kind of interesting that the first Star Wars movie in every single trilogy introduces a new kind of lightsaber. Episode 4 had the original lightsaber, Episode 1 had the double-bladed lightsaber, and now this one has the Kylo Ren lightsaber. I don't know what to call it, so I'm just calling it the Kylo Ren lightsaber. I don't care what you say about it, I think it looks really cool. One thing I did not expect going into this movie is that this is probably one of the longest Star Wars films ever made, which I do not have a problem against because this film is great. The story feels like a genuine, compelling story, and it feels like something that actually could happen after the Return of the Jedi. It feels like the story actually is continuing. Now, a lot of people go out of this movie thinking, I want more like this movie, like this. I just feel like the movie's not complete and everything, plot holes and blah 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 blah. And I actually appreciate that the movie doesn't give me everything. It's not giving me all this information. And I'm actually really glad because this is the third trilogy. It's not going to be just Star Wars 7 and at 7, but J.J. Abrams is directing his own Star Wars trilogy. He's going to direct 2 more Star Wars films, so by the end of this we're going to have 9 Star Wars movies. And since this is going to be a trilogy, I'm actually glad that Force Awakens kind of ends off in the cliffhanger in a way. One thing I really am interested in learning about in the sequels is learning more about our new characters, because we are introduced to Finn, Rey, and Kylo Ren. These are all great characters. Like, when I first saw the first trailer of Star Wars Force Awakens, I looked at Finn and I was thinking, who's this guy? I don't know anything about this guy, and really, we're focusing on this guy? Like, where's all the other characters from all the previous movies and all that stuff? Again, this was back when I wasn't a Star Wars fan, but I didn't think this movie was going to succeed, and I wasn't really comforted by the fact that this movie was owned by Disney. However, Finn and Rey have actually warmed up to me really well. I love their one-liners, I love their chemistry, but Rey and Finn actually do have really good chemistry. Rey is an excellent main protagonist. These characters are memorable, they have personalities, you remember them. The acting in the script is spot on. I actually do not look at these people as actors, I look at them as characters. There's also a lot of funny one-liners. In fact, this is another thing I have to praise about this movie. This is a very funny movie. Very, very few of the Star Wars movies have good humour. A New Hope was a little bit hokey, Empire Strikes Back was the funniest Star Wars movie yet, Return of the Jedi took itself way too seriously, and apart from one scene from Attack of the Clones, the rest of the prequels had virtually nothing. There was only one joke from the prequels I thought was hysterically funny, and it was this scene from Attack of the Clones.
Wanna buy some death sticks?
Don't want to sell me death sticks.
I don't want to sell you death sticks.
You want to go home and rethink your life.
I want to go home and rethink my life.
For the most part, the Star Wars saga took itself seriously. However, this is a more light-hearted movie, at least somewhat, because this is a genuinely funny movie. This is by far the funniest Star Wars movie in the franchise. There are several jokes in this movie I found funny, and while a couple of them I would consider spoilers, one I would not consider a spoiler is the scene that happens sort of around the third act of the movie. What happens is that two stormtroopers are walking towards Kylo Ren. Not exactly Kylo Ren, but they're approaching his room or his office for whatever reason, probably to tell him something. And then suddenly they realize that he's having a temper tantrum as they notice that there are all these sparks and screaming and yelling coming from his office. And one of the stormtroopers just stops the other, and they just stop, turn around, and walk the other way. Oh, this movie's funny. There are lots of other really funny jokes I would like to share with you, but I'm just gonna sort of not really touch them just to avoid spoilers so you can laugh at them yourself. This movie also has a great emotional conflict. With the help of the fact that we have some very familiar faces like Han Solo and Chewbacca, but even with the new characters, I got emotionally invested, and I actually cared about the new characters, and by the time the movie ended, I wanted to know the direction their characters went, because I actually really enjoyed the new characters as well as the older characters. Whenever I saw an old character appear on screen, I would just smile. In fact, you know how my Empire Strikes Back review, I praised that Han Solo was possibly my favourite character in the series? Well, it is great to see him back because he plays a rather large part in the movie. Now, he's not introduced until quite far. He's like introduced like 30, possibly even 40 minutes into the movie. But once he is introduced, he actually plays a really large role. And it's not like a rehashed personality. No, it's not the exact same guy as we saw, because it's been 30 years. This guy is actually older and he's more mature. And while I loved his fun, witty, cocky personality from Empire Strikes Back and other previous Star Wars from the original trilogy, he's older, wise, grand, and more mature, and feels like he's had character growth, like he's getting more mature. This makes the character believable. And the villain, Kylo Ren. So how am I going to talk about Kylo Ren without giving anything away? It's going to be difficult, but in short, without giving anything away, Kylo Ren is a fantastic villain. He is so good in my opinion, he might even top Darth Vader from the original trilogy. I'm serious, this is such a great villain. And the reason why is because he feels like a person and a human being. He has emotions. He has an understandable past. He has an understandable heritage. He's got an understandable motivation. He's got dimensions and he feels like a proper human being and a character. You even sympathize with this guy a little bit. There is a lot more to be said about this character that I'm not going to say here just because I want to avoid spoilers. There are also a couple of characters that sort of pay homage to previous characters in the series. Like there's a character that kind of feels like a second Emperor in my opinion, and there's another character that sort of feels like another Yoda in my opinion, only nowhere near as old, and other characters like that. In fact, one complaint I've actually been hearing from this movie is that this movie is a bit too similar from A New Hope. Why exactly is that a bad thing? Because isn't A New Hope considered to be one of the best Star Wars films yet? One of the many complaints about the prequels is that it felt nothing like the original Star Wars trilogy, among all the problems I spoke about in my reviews. But since this movie has got brand new characters, however it's got familiar faces, and it's got scenes that sort of, you look at it and go, yeah, that's a lot like A New Hope. but I don't care. In fact, I appreciate it because it feels new with the new characters and everything in the new story, but feels old because it makes me feel like I am watching a proper Star Wars film that's continuing the series. Even though there are very, very blatant, obvious references to A New Hope. In fact, when we left the cinemas, my father even said to me, they had a lot of New Hope references, and I told him that I agree. But I'm one of the few people that would say that's actually a really good thing because it helps with the familiarity, so it feels like it's a part of the Star Wars saga. Characters like the new characters Rey, Finn, Kylo Ren, these are all really well fleshed out characters, and so I know them by the end of the movie. And so once we actually get to the action, it's intense. In my Empire Strikes Back review, I complimented the action for actually being really intense and getting my adrenaline pumping. This movie did the exact same thing. Once we got to the final lightsaber fight, I knew the characters and I actually understood the characters. I knew about their past, their history, and I cared about the characters. And the fight is not overly choreographed. People complain about the final fight from Revenge of the Sith being extremely flashy and overly choreographed, and there's no look on any of the characters' faces that make them look legitimately concerned. Here, it's not overly choreographed. The characters have not actually completely finished their training yet. It feels like an actual battle, and since it feels like a battle, and I know these characters and I care about these characters, it's intense. My adrenaline was pumping, and I was gripping my seat. Not only is the action intense, but it looks great. J.J. Abrams has a big, huge appreciation of special effects, and when I say special effects, I mean practical effects. Animatronics and things that's actually there, in front of the camera. Now, yes, it's 2015, so there's obviously some CGI in this movie, but the practical effects and CGI blend so well. Since this CGI is not used that often, I don't know the difference between the CGI and the practical effects. It looks all practical to me. It all looks like it's actually there. And there's nothing there that looks like an animatronic or anything. Everything looks alive. It looks real. With this movie's really compelling story, its great humor, its excellent characters, and its really compelling action, this is just a really, really fun and really entertaining film. To give you an idea of how much I enjoyed this film, I will point out that I did make sure I went right before the film started, but despite that, I actually had a drink of Coke, and because I actually made the mistake of drinking the Coke, I had to pee really badly throughout the entire second half of the movie, and I refused to leave my seat. I was glued to my seat, and I did not want to miss any of the film, and I went, okay, Corey, you really have to pee, but I'm going to hold on, and I'm not going to let myself go to the bathroom until the end credits start. I did myself the favour of staying in my seat, and I did go after the end credits went, and I am so glad because I enjoyed this movie so much. If I was watching something like the prequels or possibly maybe even the originals in cinemas, I would have gotten up and went to the bathroom halfway through the film in a heartbeat. But this movie kept me glued to my seat, and I did not get up even though I really had to go. And also, since the characters, like I care about these characters, and the movie sort of ends off in a cliffhanger and we're not absolutely giving every little detail we want, and so since a couple doors are left open and there are 2 more Star Wars films coming out, it's gotten me excited for Star Wars Episode VIII. I mean, how long ago has that been since we last got a Star Wars film that ended and we were excited for the next movie? The last time we really got that was really Empire Strikes Back, and the reason why is because once we got Return of the Jedi, it's quite likely that not a lot of us really knew that there was going to be more Star Wars movies. They really didn't know if we were going to get any more prequels or anything. Now yes, we were excited when the prequels were announced, but once Episode 1 came, no one was excited to see Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones came around, no one was excited to see Episode 3. Really, this is the first time when one Star Wars movie ends and we went, okay, this movie ends. I want to put the next movie in right now. Where's the next movie? Oh, come on, I have to wait 2 years? I am excited for Star Wars Episode VIII, and now after seeing every single Star Wars movie, I want to say that while I originally wasn't a Star Wars fan to begin with, now I get it. I get why people are so passionate about this movie, and I'm right on with you. I got the entire Star Wars saga on Blu-ray just the other day, and I will probably marathon the movies a couple of times while I'm waiting for this movie, and I will get this movie on Blu-ray as soon as it comes out. If any of you were scared that, oh no, Disney has this movie, maybe Disney might screw it up, oh, it's got a different director, or is it possibly going to be as bad as the prequels? If you're scared about this movie not being good, don't be, because this movie is good. Really, really good. In fact, it's up there with Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, my favourite Star Wars films today. It might possibly be my favourite Star Wars film yet. I have to think about that. I'm not saying that for sure. But if I was to rank them, it would be at number 3 spot at the lowest. Because just like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens gets an S! I cannot wait until Star Wars Episode VIII comes out. I want to see where the main characters go. I want to see where all the characters go. I'm Supersonic Corey, signing off.